And when you have a situation in which insurance companies are just free to drop people, homeowners, a few months prior to these wildfires, they get away with murder. The electric utility companies get away with murder, even if they're the ones who sparked these fires, even if they're the ones who cost people their lives. You see all this stuff happening. You can't blame Republicans for that in a state that is completely dominated and controlled by one party. And that's the Democratic Party. Pointing to climate change isn't good enough for me. Climate change is real. I take it seriously. But there was a lot of mismanagement in the lead up to these fires. And the fact that they're refusing to take responsibility for that is infuriating.
I would go so far as to double down on climate change. I know nothing about it, but just to say, okay, absolutely, then you should be that much more prepared. And I want to point to a bill that I recently learned about. I pulled it up here. Ready for this one? Anna, have you heard about this? So this was Bill AB 2330, and it passed through both the Assembly and the Senate of the state without opposition. It reflected a broad consensus on the need for streamlined wildfire preparedness measures. Newsom vetoed it despite legislative approval, and he expressed concerns over increased ongoing costs. I ask you, what WTF? Because how much is it going to cost? Like, Anna, what am I missing? And what I also don't understand is, why haven't we buried the power lines? Now, I know this costs a ton of money. I know it would take years, but it hasn't even begun. What happened with Proposition 1, where in 2014, Californians voted to build new reservoirs, or they allotted like $2.7 billion to go towards this? Not one has been built. What is happening? Do you have any thoughts on this? Because I don't understand. I actually don't understand. What's happening? Why?
So I haven't looked into Newsom's reasons for why he vetoed that bill, and I'll look into that. But I do want to comment on the proposition you're referring to and how Californians overwhelmingly wanted to build more reservoirs. So that passed in 2014.
Right.
And we have yet to build a single reservoir since. The last reservoir, the latest reservoir that's been built in the state of California was built in the year 2000, 25 years ago. We have a very real problem in this state where, honestly, environmental regulations are being utilized as a way to hinder new construction. It's definitely impacted the housing market,
right,
and it's impacting our ability to build critical infrastructure like the reservoirs that voters and, the state legislature overwhelmingly claims they want to build. If you want to build these things, you have to do away with some of this red tape. Now, a lot of these environmental laws are not really about the environment. They're really about Californians who do not want to build more homes, for instance, because they're trying to protect the value of their home. But listen, homeboys and homegirls, like, you want to protect the value of your home. You're not going to be able to do that when the state is ravaged by wildfires that firefighters are unable to effectively fight back against because of the lack of reservoirs. So you look at the Pacific Palisades, there's been a lot of BS from the Democratic Party in order to defend, their behavior here.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, the way the pressure in the fire hydrants work is wholly dependent on the volume of water in the reservoirs. The fact that a 117 million gallon reservoir was empty certainly exacerbated the issues that the firefighters were dealing with. The fact that Mayor Karen Bass cut the fire budget, the operational portion of the fire budget, to the tune of $17.8 million was a problem. For all the Democrats coming at me and saying, no, she actually raised the fire budget. No, she didn't. She increased the salaries of the existing firefighters. She cut the operational fire budget, which is a different pot of money. And that operational fire budget was incredibly important in hiring civilian employees who did important things, like the mechanics, right, who would fix the fire trucks.
Right.
We have dozens of fire trucks that are out of commission as we speak because they don't have the workers to fix them. They don't have the funding to fix them. And I'm sorry, I am not going to buy for a second that we have a revenue problem in the state of California. We do not. We are the highest tax state. We pay incredibly high sales taxes, certainly in LA County. We pay incredibly high state taxes.
Yep, the highest.
Okay. And so explain to me how it is that this state can squander $24 billion on nonprofits for homeless services. Audits indicate that that money is unaccounted for. Homelessness has exploded in this state. We keep pouring tens of billions of dollars in, more and more for homeless services, a problem that just keeps getting worse. Why are we diverting funds to these nonprofits that are stealing from us when this taxpayer money should be utilized to build up our infrastructure, make us more resilient in response to wildfires? I mean, there's so much waste, so much graft, so much corruption in this state. And again, right now, the Democratic Party is scrambling because they can't blame the Republicans for this. They control the state. The buck stops with them.